Isaiah chapter 40, verse 28 to 31. Hast thou not known? Remember, our subject matter is building up strength by waiting on the Lord, and we are coming to it right now. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, is ever and is lasting, the creator of the ends of the heart, he fainted not, neither is weary. There is no searching of his understanding. He fainted not. He giveth power to the faint, like you and I. And to them that have no might, he increases strength. Even the young, who are known for strength, shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But this is where the secret of strength is, among others. They that wait or associate or relate with the Lord shall renew their strength. The company you keep determines the influence on your life. In the process of waiting on the Lord, they will mount up with wings as eagle, like their father God eagle. And when they have waited on the Lord, they will receive strength to run and not be weary. They shall walk and they will not know what it means to faint. May I submit, therefore, if you want to succeed in your walk for God, develop deeper relationship walk with God. This is where many ministers make mistake. Their walk with God is questionable. My relationship with God first. My relationship with God first. Sometimes I say some things that surprises people. For instance, I don't pray for success. I don't pray for success. I walk with the God of success, and he gives me overflow of success. Is it wrong to pray? No. I'm talking to you from the perspective of the revelation I have about him. I don't pray, oh God, go with me as I'm going. Go with me as I'm going. I listen to him and follow him. I follow him. And as I follow him, goodness and mercy follows me. The God you relate with is the God you carry. In relationship, something rubs on you. That's why when you learn the secret of waiting on the Lord, you will gain access to his order of strength. I don't study to preach. I study to know God. And the people that do know their God shall become strong. So our number one assignment is to know God, to know God, to know God. If you know God, you will not be stranded among men. Waiting on God. Whenever we hear this, many of us quickly think it's all about fasting. It's only a part of it. It's not all of it. It also involves prayer. This time around, not praying for things, but fellowshipping and relating with God. It also includes studying the Word. I know a great part of all of this must have been communicated to us in this conference. But the summary is this. We must learn to know God. You see, there is calling and there is the caller. Many of us run and pursue our calling and forget the caller. Many of us in ministry, we know about God, but we don't actually know God. They are two different things. You can know about New York and you have never been there. Through geography. Many of us are geographical ministers and not practical ministers. We must learn to wait on God. We must learn to be quiet before God. We must learn to imbibe God in us. Whenever we are waiting on him, there are even times you are fasting, you shouldn't pray over anything, but just be still in God's presence. Let him walk on you. Let him touch your tongue while you are talking to him. Let him reflect his face on you when you are talking to him in prayer. If you study the time that Moses waited on the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain, what was his prayer? Lord, show me the way. Because once you know his ways, you will command his acts. Lord, let your presence go with me. Lord, let your glory fill my life. By the time he returned, he was a changed person. You can't truly meet with God and be jettisoned among men. When your face meets with the face of God, no devil can face you. Meeting with God, relating with God is what reflects in everything that we do. Ministers are meant to be reflectors of God. Ministers are meant to be God carriers. Ministers are meant to be God's representative everywhere they go. Ministers are supposed to be imposing God's glory and power everywhere they appear. But without meeting with God, you cannot reflect God. Without talking with God, his voice cannot come into your voice. I always tell people humorously, until you lose your voice in prayer, your voice cannot be heard among men. No. My wonderful collaborators will tell you about that. They prayed until they lost their voice, and God now gave them his voice. Our noise is too much. Let's go for his voice. We are too many in the field. Let us stand up and let God's voice be heard through us. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Now listen to me very carefully before we begin to round up. What are the things you should know while waiting on the Lord? Number one, you should know God as your caller. If you don't know your caller, you will be pushed to a corner. When he calls you, he takes you from the corner to the center. When he calls you, he takes you from obscurity to limelight. When he calls you, he makes you the center of attraction. When he calls you, you don't struggle to be known by men and among men. Number two, you should know him as your sender. As your sender. If you don't know God as your sender, you will be sent back by men and circumstances. You can't be sent from God and be driven back by men. You can't fight a man that God sent. This is what you should know. In any nation and any city where you are, don't be afraid, don't be intimidated by people who are making noise. Don't be worried when they are castigating you. They are only trying to intimidate you to keep silent. You need to know your sender. Unfortunately, many people don't know who sent them. And you need to be bold about it to tell people everywhere, God sent me. Number three, you need to know God as your defender. If you don't know him as your defender, you will lose your defense. God told Jeremiah in chapter 1 verse 17, he said, because I'm the one who sent you, don't look at their faces. Otherwise you'll be confounded before them. I will make you a strong defense city. Know God as your caller. Know him as your sender. Know him as your defender. Know him as your backend.